Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources today, all looking at where classic video game titles actually come from. So our mission, basically, is to explore the story before you even press start. We're digging into these really iconic names, Metroid, Zelda, Final Fantasy, trying to figure out how they happened. Because they're not just random, right? They seem to be these little artifacts of, I don't know, accidents, tributes, sometimes sheer panic, sometimes genius. We want the history packed into those few words on the box.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how much power these names actually hold. They're like the first handshake with you, the player. They really shape your whole initial expectation. Are you going into like a mystery, an epic story, a fight for survival? The title has to do so much work right up front. It's the gateway.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Maybe start with what feels like linguistic trickery names that are fusions meant to create a kind of illusion. Metroid comes to mind.
Oh, definitely. Metroid. It sounds so alien, so techy. And that's completely by design.
Right.
The name itself is a fusion, yeah, but it's also a clever bit of misdirection. It blends Metro for the underground tunnels, the labyrinths you explore, with Android.
Right, Android, because back in '86, that's what everyone assumed, wasn't it? You're controlling some robot, some male cyborg in this big power suit.
Exactly. That fusion, Metroid, it helps sell that illusion perfectly. The name felt cold, mechanical, maybe even masculine. It hid the big reveal that Samus Aran was actually, one of the very first major female protagonists in gaming once the helmet came off.
Wow, so the name was functional, but its main job was really deception.
Pretty much. Brilliant, really.
That's amazing creativity, just by sticking two sort of plain words together. Okay, let's contrast that with another fusion, but this one driven less by creativity and more by outside pressure. Castlevania.
Ah, Castlevania. Yeah, that's a classic case of censorship accidentally sparking creativity. See, the original Japanese name was Akumajo Dracula.
Which means?
Demon Castle Dracula. Pretty direct.
Okay, and I remember reading that Nintendo of America, late 80s, they had these really strict rules, like no religious stuff, no demons.
Absolutely, almost puritanical, yeah. So the Konami team localizing it, they just couldn't use Demon Castle Dracula.
Right. So headache for them.
Big headache. They needed something that sounded gothic, mysterious, but wouldn't trip Nintendo's alarms. And the solution, they just sort of jammed Castle together with Transylvania.
Castlevania.
And there you have it, Castlevania. It sounds so iconic now, but it was basically just a workaround, probably thought up in an afternoon meeting to dodge a problem.
It's kind of wild that a name we associate with all this dark Gothic lore was just a necessary compromise.
It really shows us sometimes those constraints, those restrictions can actually force some unexpected creativity and maybe even create a stronger global brand than Okumajo Dracula ever would have.
Okay, so let's shift gears. From names born out of necessity, let's talk about names born purely out of respect, like straight-up tributes. And the most famous, maybe most beautiful example has to be The Legend of Zelda.
Oh, Zelda's a lovely story. It wasn't just pulled out of thin air by Shigeru Miyamoto, the designer. He actually named Princess Zelda after Zelda Fitzgerald.
F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife. The Great Gatsby author.
That's the one.
Wow, that's a deep literary cut. Was he specifically aiming for that kind of resonance?
Seems like it. The sources say he wanted a name that sounded, and I think the quote was, classic, romantic, almost mythical. He felt her name, Zelda, just captured this sense of timeless beauty, an eternal legend. He borrowed that elegance, and now, well, Zelda is adventure and fantasy for millions.
That elegance is such a stark contrast to the next tribute example, which sounds so simple and cute. Kirby.
Ah, Kirby, the little pink puffball.
Yeah, seems totally different.
Well, the name Kirby is actually, believe it or not, a monument to a legal battle.
Really?
Yeah. The character is named after John Kirby, an American lawyer.
Okay, what did he do?
He defended Nintendo back in the early 80s during this huge lawsuit. Universal Studios was suing them.
Oh, right. The Donkey Kong versus King Kong case. Universal claimed Donkey Kong was basically a ripoff.
That's the one. And apparently John Kirby's defense was just masterful. He completely took Universal's case apart, saved Nintendo millions, and maybe, honestly, saved the company itself at a critical time.
Wow. So naming the cute pink character Kirby was Nintendo's way of saying, thank you.
Seems like it. A quiet, but, pretty significant nod to the guy who helped secure their future.
That's an incredible contrast. Zelda, this elegant literary romantic name, and Kirby, this simple, cute name that's actually about a high-stakes legal win.
Yeah, both rooted in respect, but expressing it in totally different ways. One's high art tribute, the other's gratitude for survival.
That idea of survival leads us right into the next category. Names born under, immense pressure. Chaos, desperation maybe, titles that were basically make or break for the companies. And you absolutely have to start with the king of desperation stories, Final Fantasy.
Oh, the irony of Final Fantasy is just, it's one of the all-time great gaming stories. So, context.
Yeah.
It's 1987. The company, Square, is genuinely close to going bankrupt. Like, doors closing soon kind of trouble.
Seriously.
Seriously. They really thought this game, this project, was going to be their last roll of the dice, their final attempt.
So the name, Final Fantasy, the designer, Hironobu Sakaguchi, he literally meant final. This is it.
That seems to be the consensus, yeah. It was their final game. And fantasy was maybe the only kind of hopeful thing they could afford to dream about making at that point.
And then the opposite happened.
Totally the opposite. The game was a massive hit, saved the company completely, launched this enormous franchise that's still going strong, selling, over 180 million copies now? A name that meant the end became the ultimate beginning for Square. It's almost impossible to find a better example of a name succeeding, despite the grim reality behind it.
Wow. Okay, speaking of things not going according to the original plan, let's talk about a name where the developer's clever idea got kind of lost in translation, or rather, lost in localization. Mega Man.
Ah, yes, Mega Man, or as he was originally known in Japan.
Rockman.
Exactly, Rockman. And that name wasn't random, it was part of a whole theme.
The musical theme, right. His sister was named Roll.
Rock and roll, get it?
Yeah. And did later characters follow that? Bass, treble.
Beat, yeah. The whole concept had this playful musical harmony built right in by the developers. It defined the spirit.
But then it came to the U.S.
And the U.S. marketing team apparently felt Rockman sounded maybe a bit weak, too soft for American kids, perhaps.
So they changed it to Mega Man.
Yep. Mega Man sounds stronger, sure. Commercially it worked. The brand is huge in the West. But that change completely wiped out the clever musical wordplay the creators intended. It's a classic example of marketing potentially overriding the original artistic vision.
Do you think they made the right call, commercially? Even if the poetry was lost. Mega Man does sound pretty powerful.
Commercially. Probably, yeah. Mega Man definitely has punch. But it really highlights that tension, doesn't it? The creator's subtle harmony versus the marketing team's idea of what sells. In this case, perceived power won out.
Okay, one more from this category of unexpected origins. The game that supposedly got its legendary name, almost as a joke, Resident Evil.
Right. So the game was originally called Biohazard in Japan. Makes sense, fits the theme. But when Capcom went to bring it to the US, they found out, oops, the name Biohazard was already trademarked by someone else, a band, I think.
Okay, so they needed a new name, quickly.
Exactly. So the story goes, the American team basically ran an internal contest, just, hey everyone, throw some names in a hat.
Yeah.
And one employee suggested Resident Evil, referencing the mansion setting, evil residing within.
And the original developers.
Apparently they thought it sounded kind of cheesy. Yeah, that's what the sources suggest. It wasn't their sophisticated biological horror vibe.
But it stuck anyway.
It stuck. And now, Resident Evil is basically the name synonymous with survival horror worldwide. A title born from a trademark issue and an office suggestion box ended up defining a whole genre.
So looking at these three Final Fantasies desperation, Mega Man's marketing change, Resident Evil's happy accident, it really feels like sometimes these iconic names succeed almost in spite of the original plans.
That's a great way to put it. Fate, commercial reality, pure luck. They seem to step in and shape the destiny of these names, often overriding whatever the initial intention was. Necessity and market forces are powerful drivers.
Okay, let's wrap this up with one last category. A name that feels less like an accident or a compromise and more like a whole philosophy distilled into a single word. Pokemon.
Ah, Pokemon. Yeah, we all know it's short for pocket monsters, right?
Right. Pretty straightforward.
But the thinking behind it, from the designer Satoshi Tajiri, was deeper than just shortening the words. He wasn't just naming a game, he was sort of naming a core concept, a philosophy for the player.
The idea of actually carrying these creatures, these worlds, around with you, like his childhood hobby of collecting insects.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That sense of ownership, portability, imagination. The name Pokemon is like this tiny, perfect promise.
Huh.
It tells you, the player, that you can hold entire worlds, powerful friends, endless adventure right there in your pocket. It's such a concise encapsulation. Adventure is portable.
In this whole deep dive, it really hammers home that these game titles aren't just labels. They feel more like emotional contracts. They carry so much history and feeling, whether it's the clever curiosity built into Metroid, or the quiet thank you behind Kirby, or that sheer desperation that birthed Final Fantasy.
Absolutely. They really do carry the soul of the experience sometimes. It proves that some of the biggest stories in gaming aren't just in the graphics or the gameplay. They're right there in the name on the box. That name is the first spark. It's what makes you want to hit start.
And thinking about Final Fantasy, named for what they thought was failure, but it ended up guaranteeing this incredible success. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often does that feeling, that certainty of an ending, like having absolutely nothing left to lose, how often does that become the exact fuel you need for something legendary to begin? Something for you to think about, maybe, the next time you see one of these simple, iconic titles.